My name is Ebenezer Browne, and this is my wonderful wife, Thelma, and we want to thank God that God has blessed us to be together now for about 27 years, and we want to give God the glory for that. It's not by power, it's not by might, but it's only because of the grace of God. So we are so grateful to God that He can spare our lives in the midst of the war, for the 14 years of war we had, and then the Ebola came, and yet God has been faithful, and He has been taking care of us, and today we can sit here and just share our story as to how the Lord miraculously led us from Liberia into the Ivory Coast from the beginning of the war in 1990. We call it the journey of faith. It was a terrible time for us. It was a difficult time for us. And what you explained, going from one area to another area, they had checkpoints along the road. And as we approach those checkpoints, we'll see people with weed, we'll see people with masks, we'll see skeletons on the pole, on the stake. And as you approach there, you didn't know who you were going toward, because we had 5 different factions. And all of those factions had their territories. So as we were going, as we were approaching those checkpoints, all we do is we just pray, God, here we are again. Please deliver us. And we saw people being killed by us. We saw people taken away from the line and taken out to other places, and we never saw them again. And as we reached to those places, it's that God just led us through, and He kept us going from place to place, from place to place. And He kept my wife alive all through the war while she was pregnant and we were moving. God kept us alive, and it was only because of His grace upon our lives. But today we can stand here in Liberia to call upon His name, that by His grace He led us from Monrovia to Banga, from Banga to Ganta, from Ganta to Sanikole. From Sanikole we crossed the border, and we saw people being thrown into the river. We saw children being killed along the way. We saw people leaving the children by the wayside. But God was with us, and He carried us from Monrovia all the way to a neighboring country that we did not know anybody. Not anybody at all. And we could see the hand of God upon our lives. We could see the direction of God upon our lives. And all we could say is God kept us alive because He had a plan and a purpose for our lives. And while we're there in the Ivory Coast, we decided to come back home. And before we came, the church laid their hands on us and said, as you go to Liberia, may God go with you. And as you go, start the work that God has called you to do. And we came to Liberia, and we started the church in Liberia. And the church grew. And today, by the grace of God, we have more than 22 churches that have been planted in 3 different countries. That's Liberia, that's Guinea, and that's Ivory Coast. So today, we are so grateful to God that He spared our lives. And all along, we saw children, though we didn't have it. We didn't have food to eat. We didn't have good water to drink. But we saw children whose parents died and were left along the way. And the Lord spoke to our hearts, and we took those kids to be our own. And today they are living with us. We have 4 biological children and 4 other children that we took during the war. And today they all grew from 1990 all the way till today. They are still living with us. And by the grace of God, since we took them, God has been faithful. God has been a God who has provided, because He said He is the father to the fatherless. He said He is the mother to the motherless. And so we took those children in. People felt that we were taking a burden because we had children already. Why should we take other people's children? So they thought that we were taking a burden. But with us, we didn't see it that way. We saw that these kids would need a home. Even if it is dry rice, we would eat the dry rice together. If it is no food, we all would fast together. And we did that together. And today, those kids are now known. And all of them still live with us in our home. And we still care for them. God has been God. He has always been providing for us. And today, almost all of the kids that we took are out of high school, and some of them are in college now. And even our own children that God made to live, that my wife almost died because there were no good health care system in place. But every way we saw the hand of God. The first delivery, we saw the hand of God. The second delivery, we saw the hand of God. The third delivery, we saw the hand of God. Other pregnant women were killed. Their stomach was split into two. The child was taken out of the stomach and they died. And they took the child and they killed that child because they felt that doing that would make them very powerful. And so they destroy a lot of people. But today, our kids are here. Though we are not happy because those other kids could have had a future. But again, we all just give God the glory. All of our kids survived the war. God protected us, kept us alive. And we always remind ourselves that we did not live because we did anything good. We did not survive this war because we made it to happen. It was God. It was God. It was God. And today we give God all the praise and all the glory that today we can be here and serving the Lord in the midst of all the trials, in the midst of all the tribulation. No food sometimes, no good drinking water, no electricity, but yet and still we continue to serve the Lord because we know where God took us from. And so we have a testimony, and wherever we go, we share that testimony of an encouragement to others. That when we have faith in Jesus, He is able to see us through. That's what He did for us. And today we want to be thankful to God that we can be here and we can be serving Him, and we will serve Him the rest of our lives because it is because of Him that we are alive today. Our story has a lot of episodes, and so in one of those episodes, as we call it, episodes of our journey of faith to the Ivory Coast, we got in this town and we didn't know that the rebels have surrounded the town. And we got in the town, and early that morning the rebels just walked on the town and they asked all the men to come outside. And so all the men came outside and they told us to form a single line. And we formed that single line and they led us from the town into the forest where the local commander was sitting in the bush on a little hut. And as we got there, fear gripped us because of what we saw. We saw dead bodies of children. We saw dead bodies of pregnant women. We saw dead bodies of men, good-looking men who didn't have anything to do with the war. And they were all there. And as we approached him under that tent, fear gripped us. And all we thought was, well, I think this is the end of it all, and it is over from here. And so while we were there, not thinking about anything, to my greatest and utmost surprise, I saw my wife, Thelma. Thelma just arrived at the place, and when she arrived, then the guy said, "Who is this lady?" And he turned to Thelma and said, "What are you doing here?" And then Thelma said, "You brought my husband." So I followed my husband. And then while we were talking, because, I mean, it was so terrible. And it's like there was no hope for the fact that she came and she was pregnant. It was like those guys were very excited and happy because a way of empowering their charm that they were using was to either to bury a pregnant woman or to cut the pregnant woman open and remove the baby and kill the baby. And that would strengthen the charm or the medicine that they were dealing with. If they do not do that, they will split the woman and take out the heart and also take the heart of the baby. We saw that fear. When I saw my wife, I just gave up because I knew that was it. And while we're in the process, and the guy saw me and started to interrogate me. Who are you? Where are you from? which tribe do you belong to? I was kind of answering him his question. And just in that time, another man came who was above him. He was the commander over this guy who was asking the questions. And when he got there, he saw me, he saw his other guy interrogating me. And then he looked at me for a long time and he started to ask me and said, who are you? And I told him my name. Where are you from? I told him where I was from. Which school did you go to? And I told him I was at the University of Liberia. And then he looked at me for a very long time. And then he told his other guy that was interrogating me earlier, he said, are we going to kill all the educated people? And the guy had no answer to give him. Then he turned to me and said, I remember you. I also attended the University of Liberia. And on campus, I used to see you on campus. And then he turned to me and said, you and your wife, leave. You can go. But as you are going, do not look behind. And when that happened, and we got out of their midst, and we got out, all we could say was praise God, because we knew that it was not me, it was not anybody, it was not even that God that saw us, but it was God who sent that young man in time so that our lives could be spared. That was again a miracle. So right there we saw the hand of God again upon our lives. This is the map of Liberia, and Liberia is divided into different counties. We have Grand Jide, Grand Kipma County, we have Bapulu, we have Lofa, we have Bomi, Maigibi, Grand Bassa, Bong, Nimba, River Cess, Grand Jide, Sino, River G, Grand Cru, and Maryland. So this is the map of Liberia. And before the war, we found ourselves here in Monrovia. And this is where we were when the war started in 1990. And we left and we started to walk from here. We came all the way to Carisburg. Carisburg, we went on to Bon Town, which is Bon Mines. Then we crossed and went to Swakoko, and then Banga, Palala, Pain, Cample, Sanipole, all the way up here. And finally we found ourselves crossing this border into Ivory Coast. So this is a long distance that we had to travel. And just imagine, my wife was pregnant. Every time we took a step to go, she was pregnant. Every time we took our step to go, she was pregnant. And we walked from Monrovia all the way to the Ivory Coast. And with this kind of journey, and with the situation with different rebel groups all over the place, we cannot say that we made it by ourselves. We can only say it was the grace of God and the hand of God upon our lives that took us from Monrovia all the way to Danane, the Ivory Coast.